It is not by accident.
Войни за територии. Од статистиката, одговорот беше дека само 4 се за територии од 15.
In one period, only 4 until 2005, starting 1998. Probably those are the 4. However, those 4 wars, how did they end? Did we have any conquering of territories? No. That's why, due to the fact that such an approach for a territory today is prescribed and even resolved with legal acts such as the Treaty of Helsinki, for the protection of borders, considering the fact that the unresolved issues can be and should be resolved in a different manner, meaning since the ethnical segment is quite sensitive, the ethnical matters should be resolved according to the Convention on Recognition of Minority Rights. So that resolves the issues when it comes to the European Union. So in a democratic and in a civilized manner, we are to resolve such issues. So after the Bucharest Treaty, one has to disclose, as Zhelyev said, the imperialistic, the aspiration approach. The imperialistic approach is related to Lenin. However, the essence of it are the rights. So to nurture territorial aspirations towards another country. So those are pastimes, even though Greece pleads today, talking about the name issue, takes up a contemporary approach towards the nation, which we are to see as a new danger, and that is the so-called positivism. Which is employed by Greece as a notion, as a theoretical orientation. That approach is present worldwide, in Europe and outside Europe, so they can understand it. When Greece remarks Macedonia for its alleged nationalism, the stubbornness and so on, so the problem needs resolution at another level. Greece is contradictory. What she asks for herself is not allowed for others. That is, her demand to identify herself with the culture, which is considered Greek, or to the ancient Macedonia, now to our Macedonia. Our Macedonia is not allowed any identification as per the people, not as per ancient Macedonia. So the political community is not allowed, the creation of a political community is not allowed, and now, even today, she's striving towards an unrealistic demand. So you know the motto that whenever there is a Greek, there's going to be this process of assimilation by the Greeks. the identification is sought by three empires, first with the ancient Macedonian, then with the Roman, and then with the Byzantine. So the expansion of such empires is considered the right by the Greeks to expand their territory, and that territory accommodates the Greek nation. The past 20 years have been a proof of the fact that this is just not only a declaration, but that continuously they nurture territorial aspirations. They have been summarized in a paper issued by the Institute of Strategic Studies entitled The Macedonian Question, an overview of the attempts to create an artificial state. From authors that actually formulate the new strategy of Greece based on expansionism. Therefore, I see the connection between the Treaty of Bucharest that legalizes the Greek aspirations by the means of which Macedonia is divided in three parts, and at one point those aspirations are legalized. However, the pretensions and appetite increases, and they are redefined. In that sense, the Treaty of Bucharest, that certainly doesn't have an expiry date, as it is with the case with Hong Kong, with Tenerife and Mackay. It doesn't have an expiry date. It has not been defined in that particular sense. However, according to its essence and form, it has to be annulled. And our colleague Cepreganov asked the question because Serbia had a different approach as regards to the Macedonian part under Serbia. So whether the Bucharest Treaty has been annulled in that respect, or we should employ more efforts in order to annul it completely and to resolve the issues in a civilized and democratic manner based on the existing legislation for the recognition of minority rights. I will state now the reasons, because I'm focusing on the problems of the name issue. Irredentism. The Greeks understand irredentism initially as disabling by Skopje to identify the Greeks themselves, to identify themselves with the ancient Macedonian culture. They cannot do that, they are denied, since another country takes up the name. So they would be able to self-identify. The second matter, because now I'm stating the reasons the way that they are formally stipulated. The second aspect of that irredentism is association of territorial aspirations of Macedonia over Greece. The name itself, irredentism, is seeking of the entire territory. And in order to be more contemporary, the Greek contemporary doctrine now pleads for the right of all the countries possessing parts from ancient Macedonia for their parts to name the Macedonia, and that is only an act, because now Macedonia allegedly seeks to protect Albania, Bulgaria, and so on. Serbia is not stated. The third reason is to distance the Macedonian ethnos, the one from Skopje, from the one that exists in Greece as Macedonian ethnos and as true Macedonian ethnos, descendant from Alexander the Great. Those are the three reasons which have been formally stipulated. They initially show that Greece doesn't employ a contemporary approach, and here she is contradictory. She will talk about the occupations of Corfu, but she will not talk about the Aegean Macedonia and the occupations in that respect. She's contradictory because, again, she's confronting people that she claims that do not exist. And on the other hand, the identification of the Macedonian nation is forbidden through comparisons with actually people, inhabitants that, according to the Greeks, do not exist. There is no direct continuity of the old with the new peoples, no direct continuity. Our colleagues that teach classical philology, they don't know the contemporary Greek language. They cannot understand it. So neither when it comes to the culture nor the language, there is no direct continuity. All peoples are dead peoples. There are certain remnants. In that respect, the Greeks do not employ the contemporary theory. The second momentum, which is quite problematic, is the one of the relationship people-nation. They identify people with the nation based on the territorial grounds. The way in which the Greek nation has been actually created by winning over territories. And through winning over of territories and conquering of territories, conquering peoples. That in the natural and legal approach towards the people is quite problematic. The legal and formal approach towards the people talk about full identification of the people with its territory. I'm not Swedish, that's visible. Just as the same as the Swedish is not a Macedonian. It's not due to the natural connection with the territory, which is not geographic. Geographic means today I live by a sea or a mountain, but tomorrow I will not. That's not by an accident. The links, which are quite functional, they're talking about links with territory based on mentality, based on other various important issues that actually become an integral part of the people. The Hague decision talked about the essence of the philosophical and philological theory that the nation creates the awareness of the people through science, culture, literary language and doctrine, that according to Hegel is the approach which is basically accepted by the European Union. That is why the recognition of various peoples, the recognition of European identity is negated, that does not exist. We have a transition, people to nation, as a political unit that frequently bears the ideological colors and flags, but it has the function to overcome the lack of awareness, to instill awareness, and then to raise the awareness on a greater level, because we are talking about a European Union which is a unity of communities. In conclusion, totally lack of contemporary and scientific approach and theory that is being employed by Greece when it comes to the development of entities. I know that the formal and legal order towards the people is not a representative approach that has deviations and oscillations, and Greece counts on that, but itself is not ready and capable to overcome it, because the Greek society, I don't have sufficient time to elaborate on this, but I'm just going to say it, but that's a psychology of narrow-minded people. That in the theory is elaborated through through an excellent example of Radovanovic. It's a closed circle of a very small place, narrow-minded place. Neither they let in nor they let out. In that sense, they're closed down. It's very difficult because their politics is a prisoner to that spirit and way of thought, and they cannot let in nor let out. I didn't manage to tackle everything that I wanted to tackle, but just briefly, as regards to the ancient Macedonian heritage, there is an attitude towards that similar to the attitude towards universal values. That's the qualification. An attitude towards the universal values. Most prominent in Hegel, in his teachings, talking about the universal treasure, the universal heritage. That's a universal wealth used by everyone. With the European romanticism, he says, that's the driving force when it comes to the driving force for the European Union. In the Hague decision, this approach was evident, and that was the right to the universal values, universal heritage for all peoples. The Greek argument was rejected and refused, that we don't have the right to use and to recognize and to research those universal values. So it was rejected, something that not even is accepted by the Greek tradition and the Greek philosophy and the Greek culture. The Greek culture in itself entails universal heritage, and that is why there is a need of further research. I apologize, maybe I opened a lot of questions which I didn't close, but you will find more details in my paper. Thank you to Professor Kepeska. Do you have any questions? Dr. Cepreganov? I think that the colleague Kepeska gave quite an interesting overview. And I think that just several issues, because they are good for discussion. Greece lacks democracy, and it's a cradle of democracy. That is something that is being recognized by the West. She's a pet to the West. And that is why everyone knows that Greece is not the guilty party. She's being protected and supported by the European Union and other European forces. And Samara said that last week. You don't have a dispute with Greece. You have the dispute with the other countries that actually make all the things difficult and provide the actual obstacles. So they're all against us. That was said by the Greek Prime Minister. So, with theory, we cannot create a state. We create states with practical examples. The Israel state, Kosovo today. And I disagree with the fact that wars over territories have ceased. Maybe they will reemerge. And another issue, whether the Macedonians have ever created a national program so we know what is our vision. Because you mentioned certain strategic research that has been carried out. Serbs, the Bulgarians, Greeks, Turks, they all have national programs, national strategies. Bulgarians on several occasions have made modifications to it, and even today they don't recognize us, and they have aspirations to this territory that's clearly stated there in their program. So, except for the national program of Methodius of Charlot, do we have, except for that, since 1944 up till today, a national program that provides the vision for the nation, because the nation needs to be built on? What do we need to do in the forthcoming 50 years or so? Thank you very much for the question. Regarding the first comment, something that wasn't mentioned, that a huge problem was created by the term Hellenism. At the same time when the Greek nation was established, was set up, the state and the nation, it was introduced in the European thought by Droysen. In awe of the Greek culture, manipulated as well. But that term is conditional, and it does not correspond to ancient Macedonia, because all American encyclopedia, Random House Encyclopedia Française, Larousse Encyclopedia, the Anglican Encyclopedia, Russian history of philosophies and so on, speak of the fact that that's a new era, because Greek, yes, the language was in use, but out of cosmopolitan reasons. Okay, Kleitch, for example, uses Macedonianism, not Hellenism. Also, our classical studies department talks about Macedonism and classical or Alexandrism, not Hellenism, as well as other references. Please just give me some room to elaborate. The nation, through science and works, creates an awareness of what is a national platform. Here I have 4 points of the strategy of the Greeks through the Greek Institute. If we are to create such a strategy similar to theirs, saying Macedonia, what is that? Secondly, Skopje, and so on. This is disgusting. Do we need to do that as well? Is how our national strategy will look like? I didn't hear the question because the Ciprian didn't have a microphone. But I'm going to visit the Aegean part of Macedonia and see whether I should fear going to the border.